taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This is Augmented Reality,
Presented by the Triple S League.
So, take out...
Or May 27th, 2020. My computer just alerted me that we had a disconnection problem, so I hope that this is all coming through. I apologize for that. But anyway, it looks like we're back in business, and welcome today to the show. This is the Wednesday edition of the show. We're going to be doing a quickfire news roundup of the week. Lots to talk about, and we have only an hour in which to do it. We have a hard limit today, so we're going to have to kind of go through things in a quickfire format. And yes, I see some of you commenting that the stream stopped for a sec. There was a disconnection. Don't know what caused that, but anyway, we're back. Hope you all caught that little clip I played at the beginning there. I'm here as always with Cybsidian, and as I like to say, this is your source for news, leaks, and analysis about games and the gaming industry. So how are you doing today, Cyb?
Pretty good.
That's good.
It was there wasn't much big today, but it's a lot of it's a ton of little things that are all happening pretty much all at once.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to kind of see how things are starting to heat up. It's not just here, it's everywhere. Everything is starting to kind of peek its head out. It's like a very late spring in which people are finally emerging from the darkness of winter.
Yeah.
Of course, mind you that there's reasons for that. So yeah.
It was kind of there was, as I was going through the news of the past few days, there was just thing after thing after thing I was adding to the list. So lots to get to today. But as always, we will read off as many of your questions and comments as we can in the live chat if you're listening live. So please say hello there. Drop us your thoughts and comments. We'll do as many as we can. Of course, super chats pretty much guaranteed to be read as long as they conform to basic standards of human dignity. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us in YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we appreciate your interactions there as well. But don't forget that it does take us a little bit of time to get the podcast up to those platforms. So definitely subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel to get the latest info sooner. Okay, so couple of funny things before we get started. So the clip I played at the beginning was a clip from Bob and Doug McKenzie, the basically Canadian comedy duo played by Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas. Anyway, it was a comedy duo. They got their start on a Canadian variety show, and it sort of took off into their own thing. But the reason I played that is because earlier today we were watching the live launch prep, I should say, of a rocket from SpaceX and NASA that was going to be sending a couple of astronauts up to the International Space Station. The astronauts' names were Bob and Doug, and we were watching them prepare to take off, and I thought that was just too perfect. Unfortunately, the launch got delayed by weather, so it's been postponed till Saturday. Also, we got a copyright claim this week, Cyb. I didn't tell you about it. We got copyright claims by the Guinness Book of World Records people.
What?
Yeah. Apparently, the YouTube's system thought that some of the content from from a few of our walkthrough videos for one of our games matched content in the Guinness World Record speedrun of the game. So we got 5 copyright claims on our videos. But I emailed them. They immediately took them down. They were super fast, super great. And, I feel they deserve some sort of world record for that. I don't know where they would get that from, but, just the speed with which they resolved those claims, I was very impressed with.
Are you actually being serious?
Yes, this actually happened. I can show you. Go into the email. You can see the email. But speaking of copyright claims, though, we've been covering Sony's absolutely atrocious abuse of YouTube's copyright system. And they've been doing it through a third party who apparently got a little bit overzealous because in their aggressive takedown of everything Last of Us 2 related, Sony actually copyright struck themselves, took down the Last of Us 2 story trailer from their own PlayStation Twitter account. And all I could picture was that poor Ewok in the Return of the Jedi. Remember the one who's like swinging the sling weapon and just gets a little carried away and whacks himself in the face with it, which would probably kill him in reality. But yeah, it in their aggressive nature, they blasted themselves. Now, clearly it was a stupid oversight, but well deserved, in my humble opinion. All right, on to the gaming news. Lots to talk about. So, it was revealed this week that, well, there's more news of Tencent investments, and Tencent has made a huge investment into Marvelous Inc., which is a Japanese company that works in both video games and anime. Now, I couldn't list off the top of my head what projects they've been involved in, but they've dealt with games on tons of different systems, going back to the Nintendo 3DS and earlier probably. And they're also involved in a bunch of anime projects. Anyway, so Tencent has apparently purchased a majority holding of this company. And Tencent's reason for the investment, according to analyst Hideki Yasuda from the Ace Research Institute, is that they are probably learning how to make console games from Japanese companies, one of the last frontiers for the Chinese tech company's game business. This investment will help Marvelous ride through the period of global economic uncertainty and release more of its domestically popular titles to the Western market. So, anyway, so Tencent keeps on expanding. We talked recently about how they're setting up setting up a AAA game studio in North America, and they keep. I'm sorry, I said a majority. They purchased 20% of the company's shares.
Yeah. It's like, so it's a weird way of saying, so it's a majority of usually what's publicly available. Most companies, with their stocks, the majority of them keep 51% of the stocks within their control. Some of them, like CDPR, they don't. CDPR doesn't own 51% of their own stocks directly, but they do through people who will not vote against them in any way, shape, or form, and it might even be part of the contract that they're in. So there is a retirement company that has some funds there. It's like long-term investments. It's like a bank or something, and then they have a whole bunch of private owners that have multiple large chunks of percentages, and those are the staff and some of the people that have been with the company for a while. Some private investors, people like when you're about to go, public, or when you're starting up a company or something like that. Sometimes you'll call up your friends, your neighbors, or not neighbors, your friends, your relatives, and say hey, starting up this company, do you want to invest? It's I'm not asking you to throw in more than you can afford or whatever, but things have been going good, and do you want to invest in it before we go public, or they're just starting out, and I mean, how many startups started with some cash from their grandparents or relatives or whatever. And so that's reflected in whatnot, and that stuff comes, and that stuff is, for the most part, strictly under the control of CDPR. So that's how some companies work. And so really, when a company says that they bought out 20% of the stock in another company, that's a huge deal, because that's a lot. And it gets them it gets them a lot of pressure on that board. Not pressure to change things, more or less. Sometimes it's just, in this case of a hostile takeover that happened a little while ago, it was enough to start making the board sweat. And obviously the board then, they were forced to have one or two members on the board from this company that was trying to do a hostile takeover, and boardroom meetings were devolved into shouting matches sometimes. So that's the kind of crazy stuff that can happen with that. But
indeed. Yeah. And as Time Bean says in the chat, yes, it's not chump change. It's $65 million worth of stock in the company. Yeah. So this Tencent has tons of money to throw around. And Saib, we were talking
it everywhere.
We were talking about this earlier, because I mean, the the influence of China over the gaming industry is becoming a concern for a lot of people. We have had game companies in the Western world, implement some censorship to please China, and now backlash, usually causes them to undo it. Backlash from people who actually like, not being treated like children when they're not children, has forced these companies to sort of back off on that kind of a thing. But we have this gigantic Chinese company buying up lots of influence in the West, and is this something to be concerned with? And combine that with the fact that Steam has quietly released their alpha version of Valve's the Chinese version of Steam, which it was announced back in July 2018 that Valve had partnered with a Chinese firm called Perfect World to create a version of Steam for China, because China can't allow their citizens to just have access to everything that's on Steam. I mean, that would be unthinkable. That would be unheard of. They can't make decisions for themselves. They have to be told by the governing powers what they're allowed to consume and what they're not. But this is according the website.
Truly the most generous and well-meaning government to ever exist.
Yeah.
Clearly, also, the proprietors and the sole benefactors of all humanity in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. Well, we've got some details on what this entails. The website win.gg took a look at the version of Steam that was launched in China. Or the alpha version, I guess, is active now, and so it comes with it loads up with a message from the Democratic People's Republic of China. That's with guidelines on playing games in a healthy way. That you get that notification, right off the bat. But they also have restrictions built in to stop people from playing too many video games or playing for too long. And when they tried to boot up CS:GO in China at 5 a.m. China time, they received a message that said, "You can't play this game between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. the following day. Please take a break." This version of Steam also comes with stripped down friends system. Steam IDs have been replaced with... names have been replaced with Steam IDs, which are just basically a number that identifies you, and avatars have just been replaced with a question mark. Now, I don't know if that's going to change at some point. Like, that, I don't think they'll just leave it as question marks, but yeah, it does look like there's going to be some heavy restrictions on names. Usernames are probably going to have to be approved by a Chinese agency, and putting up an avatar that says "Free Hong Kong," well, that's not going to be allowed. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so there's some people that are really freaked out by this, and they're really worried that Steam is kind of like bowing to China and doing this stuff. And in one aspect they are, but there is something that I want people to really pay attention to. So the first thing to really pay attention to is that Steam nor China knows exactly how many people are on Steam via VPNs. Nobody knows, because there's not a list anywhere. They don't know who or how many people are contacting or connecting into the Steam library through a VPN. There are a lot of offline games that you can download and then boot up while you're offline, and it's not like Steam has a list, because these people are going through a VPN. So there's nothing to directly tie or connect them or to lock them in to be showcased as coming in from any particular place. That's what a VPN is for. And the VPNs that they're using, the ones that are most common there, are very good at what they do. So really, nobody really knows. And just because they're going to open up this Chinese client does not necessarily mean that tomorrow, snap your finger, they're going to have everybody is going to move
Yeah,
over to
it's not going to
that thing.
stop everybody
It's
in
not
China
gonna stop
from
them.
using other versions of Steam to access what they want. Now, I don't think
In fact, it may just end up helping to promote the regular version of Steam, because as people start to go through games and notice things and go, "Oh wow, look at this game, look at that game. Oh, too bad I can't play it, or is it censored?" It's just like what happened in North America and everywhere else in the world when Steam opened up for adult games, and but they said, "Oh, but we're going to censor like doing the dirty, doing the
the horizontal mambo, yeah,
yes, that's
like
that's exactly the thing that I was looking for.
you just gotta
The
you just gotta
horizontal
pick one
mambo.
and run with it.
Yeah, so they there was a lot of these games that showed up that had this stuff, and then overnight there were all these in the comments or directly in the news sections. There's and here's an uncensored patch of this thing over here, and that's one of the reasons the little journey that Steam had was basically they're like, no, we can't have that, and it's like, why not? And they're like, well, that's actually a good point. I mean, it's already an adult game. I mean, people know that they're, actually, you know what? Why not? So they opened it up and they said, do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would be picking and choosing. They would be they'd be looking at Cyberpunk. They'd be looking at Mass Effect, and they'd be saying, well, these ones have the horizontal mambo jumbo in it, and we let those through.
Yeah.
So why can't we let in all of these smaller
Well,
indie games?
And there's a part of me that feels like Steam is just too lazy to do that kind of work, to implement that censorship. Not complaining.
Well, I mean,
and I think that they also have
yeah,
they do seem to have some principled stances on it as well.
yeah,
but
and I think, I mean, this is going to be the same thing, right? So basically, as soon as it opens up there's going to be a lot of people who are like, hey, if you use this VPN service, you can access their full store and you can play this game that's really awesome that's not allowed here because it features this character called is a Canadian bear, right? And he loves honey. And it's illegal right now because, well, some people made a picture, and then this guy from Colorado flew to China, and he killed this bear in this savage fight. I can't remember his name it was Randy Marsh, I think it was the name of the guy. Really brutal. I mean, you guys should look it up on YouTube. It's crazy. Anyways, real story. So yeah, no, I don't think that this is going to limit Steam at all, and I don't necessarily believe that this is Steam kowtowing to them either. I think this is them playing smart and trying to, open the door. But I mean, there's lots of other stuff going on here that might just push this whole situation kind of even more sideways, and just keep your eye on that, because if you thought things are crazy and you crazy now, just wait 5 more months. Ooh, baby, we got some crazy stuff happening in that part of the world. And yes, I'm speaking in very much code right now. Sorry about that. But yeah. Anyways.
Do we have any idea
on.
what kind of trouble you can get in for using a VPN in China?
I don't want to be overly...
I'm just curious, but yeah.
I don't want to be overly pedantic, but I mean, people disappear for far less.
Huh.
People disappear for far less.
Which is just scary to think about, but I mean, yeah. I can't say I necessarily wouldn't if I was in that situation. I mean, yeah, you just live your life under subjugation and control, or do you rebel in your own way? Go figure. Anyway, we got to move on. So we've got a couple of interesting things. So we got some CD Projekt Red / Cyberpunk 2077 news. As we know, So CDPR, or sorry, Cyberpunk 2077 is a confirmed deal for the Xbox Series X. Microsoft has a partnership with CD Projekt Red, but and we know it's coming to the PlayStation 4 too. But what about the PS5? We haven't heard anything about that yet. And the recent issue of PlayStation's official magazine in the UK dropped a little tidbit about this in their rumor control section. The magazine says, though it's confirmed for that other console, CD Projekt Red is being coy about bringing Cyberpunk 2077 to the PS5. Though we'd bet one of our spare augmented right arms that it'll end up on Sony's new console. Now we know that from earlier reports, we know Cyberpunk 2077 will not be a launch game for the PS5. And those earlier reports include, it is, according to these earlier reports, is also not a launch game for the Xbox Series X. But we know that there is a proper, full-blown next-gen version of Cyberpunk 2077 coming. And on April 10th, it was or in and around April 10th, it was confirmed that their full-blown next-gen version is the previously announced Xbox Series X upgrade, which you get for free if you own Cyberpunk 2077 on the previous version of the console. What we don't know is if there's going to be a similar deal available for PlayStation gamers.
So because we kind of touched on this on Sunday. Let me just be real clear on this. So we know that if this is going to be the biggest game of the year, if this is going to be the game of the year, that both companies want this to be transitioned over to to their next console as soon as humanly possible. And they are very eager and anticipating trying to have that happen. However, and this is a big however, there are several caveats in this. Number one being that it's not simple to just run a game that is super high performance, super demanding. This game is going to be pushing these consoles, the existing consoles, to their absolute breaking point. You cannot take a game like that and just pop it over. Can you do it for games that are a lot easier, a lot less resources, less demanding? You can definitely do that, and there will be a lot of games that'll be day one, but those games will typically have been around for a while, and this is the other caveat, the studio has had time to process it and change it over to the new operating system, because every time we do a new jump, it is a new operating system. Now for Microsoft, it's actually a little bit easier to translate it, but for Sony, there's a lot of new programming, and this prevents some backwards compatibility kind of, in some scenarios. And again, if they can go through it and they can tweak it, add the code, add a little patch, it's easy peasy. But in some cases, that's just not possible. So I really advise everybody to not freak out and to not, be too upset when they find out that this doesn't happen. From sources that I have right now, as far as pertaining to the PlayStation, it's a mess. The code is a mess. They are having huge problems with it. They are getting closer and closer to launch, and they are having more and more and more problems. This does not help them transferring or translating a game that was just released for the last console gen to run on the new console gen without significant help from the studio that made the game to help get it running. And right now I've heard from nearly almost everybody that I have anybody that has their hands on the dev kit is saying this thing is a nightmare and it's not going good, period. Now those are rumors, and they're completely unsubstantiated, and the last few months coming up to launch is always the roughest time. So you kind of take those things with a grain of salt, because again, there are lots of games and lots of programs and lots of things that don't really click until you get that last patch in there. So don't you don't need to like take this and like assume or make some kind of an assumption based off of that whether or not you'll actually have which version which new console you want to buy, right? Like don't do that because we don't really know right now. But yeah, as far as the process of translating this game from PS4 to PS5, that's not just something that they can snap their fingers on overnight. It's absolutely not something that they can. Will they? Maybe. But they're not going to promise it right now. They're not going to promise it at the launch of the game. And it might be, a few weeks right up until the launching of the console that you'll finally hear whether or not it will be. But right now they're like, we're not promising it. Yeah. Period. Yeah. And that's why some people are a little confused on that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands it's not. There's multiple parties involved, and they all have to be on the same track, and they also all have to be ready at the same time. So, that's right. Easier for some titles. Some titles it's going to be like 15 minutes of code. Other titles, it's 3 months. Other titles, it's a year. So, it all depends. It all depends, and you don't know until you're actually trying to make it happen.
Now, this reporting that said that it was not going to be a launch title for the Xbox One, Xbox Series X. They had to name it so similar to the previous thing. The Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. Does that mean that, so when these consoles release, CDPR just doesn't think they're going to have their upgraded version ready yet? Like, did they know in advance when the consoles were going to be releasing? Like, I'm just trying to figure this out. Like, why would they say it's not a release title? What does that actually mean?
Well, it means that they won't have it day one.
Right. So so this upgraded version is going to take more time than is between now and the release of the consoles, basically.
Yeah, and a lot of that's on CD Projekt Red. Now, that's for that version. People say, well, what about backwards compatibility? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I was talking about with backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Because the upgraded version, with all of the changes, probably some tweaks, maybe some additional content that we didn't get in the original. All of that's on CDPR exclusively. The backwards compatibility, that's what I was talking about before.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I was not talking about the upgraded version. The upgraded version, I guarantee you, is not going to be day one. It's probably going to be a couple months down the line.
Gotcha.
At the very least, if not like probably closer to 9 months after release or almost a year after release.
Yeah.
And they will probably bundle it with a major DLC.
Yeah, very likely. That would make sense. Mm-hmm. All right. See, Game Notes in the chat asking, what did I miss about cats? I have no idea, man. But I don't know. I'm not going to say too much, but our buddy Game Notes has got something cool coming in the near future. Check out his channel. You can click on him right in the chat there, or you can find his channel linked on the front page of our channel, the Triple S League. Ren Sten says, honest question, do we need a new generation of consoles? I mean, I'm going to go with yes on that, just because, I mean, if we want to push games past where they are technologically currently, like Saib said, the latest games coming out are pushing the current generation of consoles to their absolute limits. Now, if you mean like, can't we just move to online streaming? Well, that's just not in a place yet where it's ready to replace actual hardware. And there is a big market for consoles still because they're more cost effective than a high-end PC for running games on. So we could probably talk about that for an entire hour. But anyway, I'm going to go with yes. Like the current console generation it's drawing to a close, and upgrades are needed, especially when we see things like we saw in the Unreal Engine 5 demo. Just visually was massively impressive. And again, we were like, well, what does this mean for gameplay when it comes to that? And that's an important concern. I won't rehash all that, but my answer would be yes, just because, I mean, it's like that's how it moves forward. If there was no Super Nintendo, we'd still be in the 8-bit era. Okay.
Yeah. Just a quick kind of addition to kind of that question about the streaming thing. Because this has come up before. Is video game streaming, is that going to be a thing? Ultimately, yes, it'll be a thing. Ultimately, yes. Kind of adding to that, every single person in the world will be given a chance to hook up to the internet at some point. And I say that very convinced because it behooves a lot of companies to connect everybody to the internet because of the just the enormous amount of data and possibility that opens up, and to do it for free. It really does. If you could, if a company could connect every single person to unlimited high speed, basically like working on the best fiber connection you possibly can, and you have a 0.05 ms delay from one side of the planet to the other side of the planet, anywhere on the planet, and if you could do that, and that came at a cost of $1 billion a year, or wow, that's definitely on the low end. If that came at a cost of $50 billion a year, every company I know in the industry would snap that up, because they know that once they had that, every other company who wants to get their stuff out to those people would gladly pay that the hard line or the physical connection company would pay them to get access to all those people. A lot of people say, well, what would connecting people in really poor countries do? Why would that be a thing? Well, it's because it's not just, people themselves are not necessarily the only thing that you profit by, giving them an internet connection and they buy stuff. That's not where the sole money-making thing is. The sole money-making thing, as we know from all the social media that's out there, is using everybody that you can to build up an advertising and an understanding baseline for how to sell other people's stuff. Facebook does a lot of things with a lot of people. Every social media company does a lot of things with a lot of people who use the product for free. They are the product. Those people using that platform for free are the product, because every time they use it, every time they do something on it, they're giving information to that company, to their advertisers, to everybody else, and all of that information is worth more than what most people put into the platform. And then they turn around and they sell that. That's why they sell your personal data and all that kind of stuff. So just understand that, and then understand that yes, it actually behooves big mega corporations to bring free internet to places in the world where nobody has a penny, because it's giving them that access that they open up and get access to other things, and they start to understand things and understand people. They get to study them, and then they get to take that information, turn it around, and sell it to somebody else for a much, much higher cost of what it took to get those people that free internet. It's like giving somebody unlimited access to a TV station, like shows and stuff like that. It's there's lots of companies that were clamoring to do that years ago on mobile, and we're told, you can't do that. But they wanted to. Why? Even when they were paying the data charges for that stuff, because that made them, watch that TV station more. I shouldn't be saying TV station. I should be saying network. Like Fox or Warner Bros. Or whoever, whatever is producing television shows and stuff like that. So, anyways, little bit of a offshoot into the. Anyways,
all right.
Next topic.
Well, I just want to do the mid-roll here. You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast, and we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live show, we welcome you to join our Discord community. It's an open invite. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members about all the things we love to talk about, and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. And there's a lot of creative people in our community, and a lot that is going on there. and people sharing their projects and working together on stuff. It's pretty amazing to see. And there's been some live streams happening during this lockdown, just with Discords, in server streaming and things like that. Lots of amazing stuff going on there. We really want to support this community. We've wanted from the beginning to turn this, to not just have a YouTube channel, but to really build a community. And so it's so exciting to see that happening. And so I want to thank all of our sort of regular members and contributors there, and everybody who lurks in the background. You're welcome too. And you know what? Yeah, it's great to have you as well. Anyway, say hi to us in the welcome channel if you're new there. So Shua82 says he'd be fine with Elon Musk being emperor. I mean, it could definitely have its perks. I'm pretty sure every workday would end at 4:20. Okay, so a few other topics to get through here. We may have a possible release window for Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, it's nowhere in the immediate future. I mean, depending on what you consider the immediate future. But it's looking like it could be a 2023 to 2024 release date, based on an SEC filing from Take-Two, the company that owns Rockstar Games, which makes, of course, the Grand Theft Auto series. And it was based on allocations, like a huge amount of money being allocated to marketing in the 2023 fiscal year, the fiscal year runs from April until March. So the 2023 fiscal year, so April 2023 through to March 2024. So somewhere in that range, this could be indicating the release of Grand Theft Auto 6, somewhere in that range, just because of the huge uptick in the marketing budget that they've allocated for that fiscal year. Now, this is nothing definite, but as the report or the analyst or the original report on this points out, something similar happened that accurately predicted the release time of Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if that got reported on at the time, but in hindsight, you can look back and say, yeah, they allocated all of this marketing budget for the release year of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that spike in their marketing budget even before RDR2 was announced. Yeah. So something big is coming at that point.
And we have talked, and we've talked numerous times before in the past on how marketing stuff that is not secret. I mean, this stuff is if it's a public company, it's out there, and you can see these things, these preparations being made, and it gives you a ballpark usually. And then once you know the generalized ballpark, you're going to have like 5 or 6 dates within that ballpark that are prime release window, and it's not that hard to like do basic like stuff to figure out exactly how that functions down into that big super secret awesome path information there.
Yeah. Now it should be noted that this massive allocation of budget did get moved by a year. Like it was originally a year prior. And so this just goes to show that things can change. But anyway, it's just interesting to see. So this might be when we're expecting to see that game, but it could always change. And it's still, I mean, we're looking at least 3 years down the road now.
Yeah. I suspect that the majority of studios and games and game companies, there were a lot of game companies that we have been kind of speaking with on the side. A lot of them had plans to do big announcements in 2020. All of that is not happening anymore. It's all going to follow up. Most of it's going to end up following up the next year. So this is very, very interesting. We are, of course, worried about some companies. This is really hurting them. Other companies, this is actually helping them. If you started up a studio recently and you were in the planning stage and you were in the like basic recruitment stage, there's a couple companies that we know about that are in that stage right now, this has actually been quite helpful because you've been able to sit at home and plan at home and just get on some, whatever, whatever whatever team, viewer kind of thing that you're working with to kind of like work out some stuff, whether, whatever. And this is going to give us some pretty good titles, I think, in the future. Like this is definitely changing things. So we like to see that, and we like to see where it's going. So yeah.
Okay. And speaking of anticipation of things, this is an interesting story. So there's a Japanese technology journalist named Zenji Nishikawa, and he has teased that he's got a huge scoop coming for the June 4th. For June 4th, basically. And it's going to be coming in Weekly Famitsu. I'm guessing that's a Japanese magazine. I've never heard of it. But it's supposedly something in the June 4th issue is coming from this guy, and he says it's going to be revolutionary, it's going to rile up the industry, and it's a huge scoop on the level of the initial PlayStation 5 article that was in Wired magazine. What could this be? I don't know. But yeah, he's sure playing it up, and this is making some ripples in the industry. And
there are 3 stories that I think would have the same effect as what he's saying, that are centralized or localized within Japan. Those are all, I mean, it could be any of those 3, and it could be another 2 that I could guess off the top of my head or make generalized assumptions on. I have sort of a feeling that it might have something to do with the new consoles, and it might have something to do with a number of big Japanese studios. Yeah. That's all I'll say there, because again, I can't actually mention this, otherwise we're
well, I
in
mean,
big
this
trouble.
might,
but yeah,
Nishikawa. Okay, there's some additional information that I've got in front of me here. He apparently let the name Sega slip while talking about this after his. He reported all of this on a live stream, and then apparently let the name Sega slip a little while afterward.
Ooh, I hadn't heard that bit.
Yeah, but he
okay.
He did point that out in the live stream, or this did happen during the live stream. And when it was pointed out in the comments, he said, "Did I say Sega? Oh, then it's Sega." He confirmed it's not a Dreamcast 2. Anyway, could this be misdirection? It's hard to say. However, June 3rd, which is the day before the article is supposed to come out, is the 60th anniversary of Sega. So it could be connected, but at this point, it's really hard to say. But anyway, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that, because I'm curious.
And like I said, there are multiple things that this could be. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so there's been a lot of articles and videos and things posted in our Discord server over the past few weeks about the collision between. I didn't even intend that pun. Wow, the collision between real-life motorsports and the gaming industry. As you know, motorsports, car races, NASCAR, that kind of thing is sort of shut down for the LARPing situation, the situation we're all dealing with, which I still don't know if we can mention with YouTube's algorithm.
Nope.
Anyway, like there's just been some crazy stuff happening. We had Kyle Larson, who is a NASCAR driver. He was suspended by NASCAR for using a racial slur during an iRacing event on April 12th. Now, so what's happening is, these car races are not happening. So these drivers are all being brought in to do these simulated races, these high tech driving sim races, and they're being live streamed and stuff like that. There's events being put on with their sponsors and that kind of thing. Kyle Larson was involved in one of these. Said the N-word and got suspended by NASCAR.
So I want to point this out. A lot of these drivers, like, drive. These races are incredibly, like, insane, right? Like you watch a NASCAR thing or you watch an Indy, with the even faster cars, and it's like, wow. But if you're driving that stuff, I mean, you're inches away from death constantly. And I'm not covering for what he said. Obviously, it's like, dude, pick some better cuss words. But I've heard that these guys swear like a sailor constantly when they can. They're either biting their tongue, trying not to like die, or they're cussing like constantly because it's such high stress. And this is why it's like if you're ever going into public life, like, just get in a habit of like changing out all of the bad cuss words that you've picked up, over the years from bad relatives and bad examples in school and stuff like that. Just like completely delete them. Bring in your own stuff. Like,
right.
bring in your own, like, come up with new cuss words.
Yeah.
Because,
Like,
because
you've got to be. You got to be in control of your words. But I mean, I guess, they're not used to that. That's not excusing it for sure. I mean,
well, yeah, no,
that
I'm
was
just saying
stupid.
it's like,
What he did was just stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like if you had put microphones on these people when they're driving, they would say all kinds of terrible things, and it's like, dude, like,
yeah,
I mean, I sort of get it, between Felix, right? Between Felix and all the other stuff that's happened over the years. It's like, I get it. And it's bad that you have that in your language anyways. Like, it's like you should, like, grow up. Like, you shouldn't have that cuss word in your vocabulary, because it's very negative, and you should, I mean, delete it, for crying out loud. It's like Doctor Who. When he meets people that are unimportant after he's done dealing with them, he deletes them from his memory because it's just not worth having around. And it's like, yes, this is just not worth having around. You can get rid of this stuff. Honestly, you should do it. And I mean, I've had circumstances in the past, not with that word, but with like just overreacting on stuff that happens on a stream or something like that, because it's like you're not thinking, and it takes some time to, like, sort out what you want to be saying. And it's like one of the things that, there's like referencing anybody, like anything, sexual on any person. It's like that's normal. That's what you're raised around. But when you're going into this stuff, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Just, focus on using different swears. And I try to do that. Like, I really try to, like, come up with ways to swear.
Well, that,
when I'm frustrated, because
I feel like somebody is going to misinterpret you here. So you're not saying that it's it's okay for him to use a racial slur. Like, that's not the same thing as swearing.
No. I mean, well, when I say so, I'm a good boy. Swearing to me is any words that are bad.
Well, okay,
and
that's
and
enough
so
said.
Enough
said.
So yeah,
we have to move on. But
together.
I just want to make sure.
And I know it's not supposed
there
to
are
be
times. There are times when, just the way you phrased some of that, I was like, somebody's going to take issue with that. So no.
No. Racial slurs are like, I mean, those are very, very, very bad. But I approach it all in like, it's bad. It's all bad. It's all bad.
Well, you have to think, if it comes out at an inopportune time, it seems like you must be in the habit of saying it when you think you're not being heard. I don't know. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah.
But the other question is, like, okay, the other question that's come up surrounding this as well: should this guy lose his career over it. And that's an ethical thing that we're not going to discuss here just because we don't have time. But, that's one question. But getting back to the main thrust of this, since then, there's been multiple other incidences that are just... This is a very interesting situation when it comes to, these professional drivers trying to adapt to this online simulated racing world. There was an incident. There was an event called IndyCar that took place recently. It was another virtual racing event that several controversies came from, not surrounding language and stuff, but just in terms of how the drivers were performing, what they did, intentionally causing crashes has been alleged, or really just doing things that they would not do in real life because it would be, first of all, very dangerous and for everyone involved. And I think that's the primary reason. But it was alleged that this one driver got really annoyed with this other driver and then decided to basically get in his way and slow him down so he couldn't win, and all this weird stuff came out of that event. And I don't follow motorsports at all, so I don't understand the nuances of it. But then we had yet another thing that happened. Daniel Abt, who's a Formula E driver, lost his partnership with Audi, the car company, and that sounds like a pretty lucrative thing. But he was in an event that was like a series of races, and he decided to let a guy who actually does sim racing, I don't know, professionally or competitively, whatever, somebody who's really good at the sim racing, drive for him in one of his races. And so he was pretending to do the driving, but it was actually this guy who's really good at it was doing it for him. So there was a lot of articles about this after the fact, saying, oh, he was cheating, and Audi, of course, axed their partnership with him. Now, Daniel Abt then went and released his own statement on the thing. You can watch it on YouTube. It's in German. If you don't speak German, there are subtitles for it. I watched it this morning. It's very interesting. His claim is that it was supposed to be funny. It was supposed to kind of be a joke. It wasn't to get a result. He wasn't cheating to win because he just doesn't care about the outcome of these events. And we'll come back to that point in a minute. He wasn't intending to, just cheat to win and then be quiet about it and hide it afterward. He claims that they were actually documenting it and were going to reveal it afterward as a joke. I don't know. Something like that. I mean,
that has happened before.
Yeah.
That happened with the what's the Nintendo fighting game with all the characters from Nintendo?
Oh, Smash Bros.
Yeah. So in Smash Bros, there was this little girl that was showed up at this competition, right, where you could battle this big pro guy. And she came up and she started playing him, and she was really good, super crazy good. And then and the guy was he's like, no, I can't lose. And his mind was getting blown. And then they reveal it was one of his friends who's also a high level competitor. And it was no, it was this part of this thing. Yeah. I did not understand the point of that. I really didn't. I'm that.
Well, it's kind of a nice. To me, it's kind of a funny prank to play on your friend. To Daniel's credit, it kind of backs up his claim that the idea was initially discussed on a live stream with about 1,000 people watching. When he was talking with, it was a practicing stream, and he was talking to these other sim racer guys, and it was like, hey, you should drive for me in the actual race. Wouldn't that be funny? He does actually say that. So there is evidence that, yes, they were not taking steps to cover it up. And, it was kind of discussed publicly. So, anyway, you can interpret that as you will, but I just wanted to bring this up partly because it seemed to have garnered a lot of interest on our Discord server, and it is a very interesting situation. This collision of real racers with sim racing, but also there's just this issue of it seems like the common theme and thread through this is that these professional drivers they do not take this sim racing stuff seriously. It's just a game. Whereas what they do, on an actual racetrack, they take that seriously. Mm-hmm. But they're having a hard time taking this sim racing stuff seriously. However, at the same time, they're still being sponsored. Their managers are arranging them to take part in these events and those kinds of things. So it's just this real clash of interests here. So anyway, really, don't really have time to discuss it further, but it's just a fascinating thing that's happening. And finally, we were going to talk about... I was going to go through, actually, the IGN Summer of Gaming and Summer Game Fest schedules. Those are two different events happening, Summer Game Fest and then the IGN Summer of Gaming. Schedules for both are available now. IGN has so much stuff planned. And then on summergamefest.com, you can see all of the streams and things that are being planned for Summer Game Fest, which includes Night City Wire, which is about Cyberpunk 2077. That's happening on June 11th. The actual time of it is still to be announced. Anyway, those schedules are available. We don't have time to go through them because we're up against the clock. But interesting thing related to this, BlizzCon 2020 has been canceled. And interestingly, there's no online replacement planned for it. Whereas a lot of these other companies are going to be doing things online, whether it's part of these game festivals or otherwise. But BlizzCon got canceled for the same reason that so many other events have been canceled. Mm-hmm. But they're not planning a replacement for it. So that's very interesting. That's kind of telling. That just kind of suggests that there's no major announcements coming up.
Well, it's that they're behind. It's that they're really, really behind. And this happened a few years ago. They had to cancel because they were just behind. They couldn't. They hadn't kept up with stuff, and they were basically between a rock and a hard place because they were just behind so much. And here now, I think they have the same thing, where just overall the entire studio is just behind massively, and they desperately need to make this to kind of catch up before they can do any kind of a bigger event. But this is also telling because they make an enormous amount of money on this stuff.
Yeah,
they sell digital passes that are within the range of $100 or more, depending on what you pick, and they sell 1 million of those every year. That's just for the digital passes. Their on-site passes are $300-400, $500 for what you pick, up to almost $1,000. And again, that's all their own stuff. It's a huge money operation. And they have, I guess, bungled things, or they're just behind, or they're just, whatever's causing the issue. They just can't even do a digital event, a solely digital event. I am expecting, and I've been hearing more and more rumors that more and more companies are starting to experiment with a purely digital conventions going forward, utilizing super fiber and VR and catering, creating events and stuff like that allow you to walk them just as if you were there, surrounded by people. You can meet people, you can talk with people. That they're working on doing this, and this is an interesting concept because it really is. I won't talk about it today because it's getting into the weeds.
We do have to wrap up here. So.
Super fascinating, and also really telling that I think Blizzard is just behind, and they're in some serious trouble if they don't get a handle on this stuff, which they really need to. So, anyways.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the show for today. So thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave. And you know what? I really appreciate those of you who are watching live, even when it's not an opportune time for you. I know for some of you, watching at this time, it's like the middle of the night, but you valued this show enough to stay up and listen to it. That blows my mind. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. You're all awesome. We have the best community on the internet, in my opinion. Special thanks also to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big darn heroes on Patreon, Shua82, Robin, Timebean, and our 2 anonymous supporters at that tier there. Channel members on YouTube, Mr. Pazernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, and Terror K. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other platforms that this podcast goes out to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show on YouTube Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and our other listeners and be a part of the discussion. Our Wednesday schedule is really wonky. We are going to try and nail it down to a consistent time as soon as we can. In the meantime, for the foreseeable future on Wednesdays, we're going to have to sort of announce the time either on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. We'll do that as early as possible, but the Saturday schedule is not going to be not changing, not going anywhere. So that will at least be relatively consistent. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you again very soon.